I'm Jennifer Marie Keller. Welcome to my new series, Diary of a Pregnant Artist. This video is going to be all about the first trimester and what it was like being a full-time artist, being a painter while going through the first 3 months of pregnancy. Before I got pregnant, when I decided I wanted to start a family, I wanted to make sure that nothing in my work environment was toxic, either being toxic, getting on my skins, or breathing in the fumes from it. So I made sure that my paints and mediums were completely non-toxic. This is really important to me, obviously going to be through the pregnant process, but also my studio is in my house. And so when I have the baby, I want to make sure that the baby couldn't get into any of my materials. And if they did, they're non-toxic. For my original palette before I was pregnant, these were the paints that I used. So I had lead white, yellow ochre, cadmium red light, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and ivory black. So this was my basic palette. I would super rarely use genuine Naples yellow, and then when I was plein air painting, I would rarely use cadmium yellow. These both are toxic, and I have not found replacements for them yet because I haven't missed them at all from either my studio palette or plein air palette. So if I do end up missing these colors and I want non-toxic substitutes, I will find some, but so far I do not miss them. Lead white, obviously toxic because of the lead. So I've switched this with titanium white. This is a little bit brighter and colder than this, and this is also, the titanium is also opaque, while the lead is a little bit more transparent. It's absolutely fine. I do miss the lead white for skin tones. I don't think I noticed yet anything in the actual painting process. It's just the way it feels. I prefer using lead white, but titanium white is totally fine for right now. Yellow ochre, completely non-toxic. Cadmium red light, toxic because it's a cadmium heavy metal. So I switched it out with Sennelier red. This color is so close to the cadmium red light, except for it is slightly cooler, but ever so slightly. I've also noticed that the Sennelier red dries a lot faster than a cadmium color. I mean, it's still oil paint, so it's gonna stay completely usable for a full day, but after that it starts to get tacky. Alizarin crimson, perfectly non-toxic. Ultramarine blue, non-toxic. Ivory black, non-toxic. So this is my new palette. So the only two colors that I've changed are these two. As far as my mediums, in the studio I would use black oil, and then when I was plein air painting I would use Oilio gel, and I'd also use Oilio gel in the studio to oil out my paintings. Black oil is toxic because it is linseed oil boiled with lead. The reason that they do that is because then it speeds up the drying time of your paints, which is really nice, but it still feels like you're using linseed oil since it's still in oil. So I replaced this with plain linseed oil. So I've noticed while painting in my studio, the drying times are a lot slower because this slows the drying time of your paints. But it's fine, and I don't use medium too often anyway while I'm painting, so it hasn't changed my practice too much. Oilio gel is perfectly safe. It's linseed oil in a gel medium. So I use this plein air painting still and also oiling out my studio paintings. I do not use turpentine anymore, any solvents or spirits. I don't like using them anyway, and I have pretty much taken them out of my painting practice altogether, even before I got pregnant. It's been about a year since I haven't been using them, and I don't miss them at all. I know it's common that a lot of people, when they paint, when they're starting a painting, they'll use turpentine, either pure turpentine as a medium, or they'll mix it in a medium to thin out their paint. But I start painting with dry brushing. I really like how that looks. It works for me, and so I don't miss using turpentine at the start of a painting. Also, to wash my brushes and get the paint out of the brushes, I don't use any solvents for that either. I just use soap and water. So currently what I use is this product called the Masters Brush Cleaner and Preserver. I'll put a link for all the materials down below, but I find this to be really great. Before I use this though, I just used a normal bar of soap that you would use in the shower to wash your hands with. And then I've also used, I don't know the product name, but it's laundry soap, and it comes in a big pink bar of soap. And I find that that works perfectly as well. And it's less expensive than this stuff as well. Now, I don't like starting a painting either on panel or canvas where the panel and canvas is white. I like there to be an imprimatur, so a tone, like a mid-tone, all the way already on the canvas or panel. And if the panel is small, I will just dry brush a tone on the panel or canvas, and that works great. Though if it's bigger, especially I'm working on this one painting right now that is 4x5 foot. Before I got pregnant, I toned that with turpentine. So that is the one place where I still will use turpentine. The only time is toning and putting a prematura on a canvas or panel if they're large, and it would just be way too cumbersome to be dry brushing a tone on. And so before I got pregnant, I had a lot of panels and canvases already toned and prepared. When I do run out of them and when I start another big project where I need to be using turpentine to put that imprimatura on, that first tone on the canvas or panel, I'm just going to ask someone else to do it for me. That's the one thing that I can't seem to get around yet, but it doesn't mean that I have to do it because it's not really part of the painting process. It's just like the preliminary step before you start like really working on the painting. For the different symptoms of pregnancy that I got in the first trimester, the first thing to hit me was exhaustion, like extreme exhaustion, which I thought this would happen later on in pregnancy when your belly is pretty huge. But this was definitely the first symptom I got. And with the extreme exhaustion, it wasn't just my body feeling really tired, but also my mind feeling really tired too. So I had this like foggy brain as well. I remember days where I would be sitting and mixing up my paints for the day. And then after I have my palette prepared, I would just be willing myself to get up and start painting. And when the exhaustion was that bad where it was just like so tired it was just difficult to like stand up and work because I prefer to stand when I paint. My painting days were short, probably 2 to 3 hours instead of at least 8 hours a day, which is what I normally paint for each day. And then the rest of the day I would be doing something where I could be sitting. Some parts of the painting I could be in a chair to work on if it's like lower parts in the painting, or I would do other stuff like administrative work on the computer, planning stuff out, editing or shooting YouTube videos. And a lot of days were like that during the first trimester where my productivity just went way down low for painting because I felt like I could only like be concentrating and painting for 2 to 3 hours a day. Also, it felt like whenever it hit 5 p.m., I was just done for the day completely. Usually what happens is when I'm not pregnant and I'm feeling more like myself, I get up and work throughout the day, and then my husband comes home and we eat dinner together and hang out for about an hour or two, and then we will go and work on our separate stuff then. So then I usually go back to painting at my easel. But I didn't do that at all during the first trimester. I was just when 5 p.m. hit, I was just like checked out for the day. I was just too tired and I couldn't think clearly then. And when the exhaustion was really bad too, I would just need to take breathers where just need to like either sit and not do anything or even take a nap, which I tried not to do during the day, but definitely not during the first trimester. I think I was taking a nap every day just to get through it. The exhaustion was probably one of the hardest symptoms to deal with because I really don't like feeling lazy. I really pride myself that I had, just part of my personality is that I'm really ambitious, and I have a fire within me to be like wanting to paint. And I feel best when I'm being productive. And so since just being tired, my productivity was super low for three months, I just had to keep reminding myself that this is temporary. The next symptom I got was morning sickness, and I got that pretty early on too, and it lasted pretty much all the way through the first trimester. And morning sickness does not last all morning, but at least for me, it lasted all day. And I was lucky that I never threw up. It was just strong feeling of nausea. And I talked to my doctor about this, and she prescribed me, I think it was called Diclegis, which is an anti-nausea medicine for pregnant women. And so that helped a lot. It didn't take the nausea away, but it kind of took the edge off where I could feel like I could still be working throughout the day without like that extreme distracting feeling of like you're gonna throw up. I found that I did a lot better when my stomach wasn't empty. It was definitely worse when my stomach was empty. So I kept a plate of crackers in my studio. And so it's probably about every 30 minutes I would eat a cracker. And that definitely helped my nausea. Also, like I said, I prefer to stand and paint, but I found it helpful to keep a chair nearby. So if I got a big wave of nausea, I could sit down. And I kept trying to make everything work for me. So when I would sit down, I would study my painting, and it was kind of nice because when I'm standing on working, and then when I sit down, it's a different eye level, so different vantage point for me to study my painting. Another thing that I didn't expect with this nausea with morning sickness was that it took me a really long time to eat my meals. I wanted to be making sure that I'm getting food in me, so I'm staying healthy and strong, giving enough nutrients to the growing baby. And so to do that, I would eat really, really slowly to make sure that the nausea wouldn't get too bad. And so meals took a significantly longer time than they used to. So it also cut down in the time that I'm spent in the studio as well. But it was also kind of nice too because I felt so tired. It was nice to just sit down and be taking a break while I eat for really slowly eating for a long time. And the last thing was not feeling motivated. And this probably isn't a symptom in and of itself. It's probably just because I had that exhaustion and also feeling sick. But it was really worrisome for me because, like I said, I really pride myself with being like productive and that fire to be painting and producing work. And it bothered me how much I just wanted to take breaks from painting so I could rest. And I don't think it was depression because I've dealt with that before. I think it was just because I was feeling sick and tired while I didn't feel motivated. And with depression, I've taken classes and gotten help for that. That has been really beneficial for me. So I don't think it was depression. Though that definitely can be a symptom of pregnancy. And so if you're pregnant or not pregnant and you feel like you might be depressed, I really recommend trying to find classes for depression and getting help because it's been hugely, hugely beneficial for me. And the last thing was an increase in migraines. So I've had migraines all my life, and normally I have one once a month, sometimes more if I'm not really taking care of myself. Like if I'm feeling like stress, then I'll definitely get more. But pregnancy can definitely increase migraines, and it hasn't been too bad for me, except for there was 1 week where I've never had this before, but every day of the week I had a migraine, which was terrible. Because migraines are supposed to last anyways a top of 3 days, but I had a migraine on one side for like 3 days, and then it switched a new migraine on the other side after that for 3 days. So that was pretty terrible, and I got nothing done that week because I know if I push myself during the migraines, it makes it so much worse. those are pretty much all of my symptoms, the ones that affected painting and just my work flow and productivity. And it was definitely challenging, and I actually found it impossible to keep up the same productivity level. It went way down for this first trimester, but I found I normally kind of like push through what I'm feeling to keep working, but definitely with pregnancy, I'm finding that if I do that, I just feel more nauseous, more tired, more sick, can trigger migraines. And so I found it really important to be paying attention to my body and my mind and how I'm feeling and staying in tune with myself so I can make adjustments that I'm taking care of myself, because if I ignore it, it just gets worse. And luckily, the last week or two of the first trimester for me, I felt like that all my symptoms started to fade away. And so now I feel pretty much like myself for the most part, where I have the same energy level. I'm like crazy motivated again. And the nausea is like, it's rare when I get like a wave of nausea. So that's fantastic. I'm Jennifer Marie Keller. Please subscribe to this channel, comment, and like this video because it really does help me out. And if you have any questions about what it's like being a full-time artist going through pregnancy for the first trimester, just comment below and I'll try and answer your questions.